The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is the Bad Batch Report. Absolutely perfect noises being made. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and the person who always makes noises after I say the Bad Batch Report is Ken Napzok. And this time it was, to me, a perfect imitation of Malakili from Return of the Jedi reacting to the Rancor, but also an accurate capturing of the devastating emotions involved in the Bad Batch season finale.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Yeah. It was a tough ride, a very, very tough ride, literally and emotionally, but also great episodes. Little spoiler, I thought these episodes were great. We are going to be talking about this epic conclusion to season 2 of the Bad Batch, a 2-episode finale, season finale. We're going to be talking episode 15, The Summit, written by Matt Michenovitz, directed by Nate Villanueva, story editor, continuing credit throughout the season to Matt Michenovitz, and of course, episode 16, Plan 99, written by head writer Jennifer Corbett, directed by Stuart Lee, and again, that story editor credit to Matt Michenovitz. It has been great to see all the names and highlight the names of some people who've been around since the Clone Wars days in Star Wars animation. These director names are very familiar, but to see some of these names really pop and to see the evolution of the style in the writing has been great. Any reaction to the credits? Great reaction. I love seeing it's an all-star of names, right? And to have Jennifer Corbett get the writing credit for episode 16, and she had one earlier, and hers kind of being, I guess, de facto showrunner. That term is such an interesting term. I didn't grow up knowing that term. I know what it is. I know friends who are showrunners. But anyways, all to say that these are the names all season long that have just delivered some of the best Star Wars that for me personally. And I love seeing them taking it home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope that that Jennifer Corbett gets a real big spotlight during the Bad Batch panel at Star Wars Celebration. Let's talk about our viewing experience. This was the real time for us that Mandalorian and Bad Batch collided. As we've been saying all season, we were trademark lucky because we keep repeating ourselves. We were really lucky to have those screeners. It allowed us to pick a time to watch the Bad Batch, set it aside and give it its full due is just as important, just as essential to the fabric of Star Wars as any live action television show or movie. But hey, our screeners ran out at episode 14. So at midnight here on Pacific Coast, we had a Mandalorian 2 Bad Batch episode triple header. How did you approach your viewing experience of these 2 episodes of Bad Batch?
Well, subnote to this, at 12:01, I got an email. Here's your screener link for the Bad Batch finale. I'm like, well,
I got it too.
Yeah, thanks a pad load, but not today. Yeah.
If you really want to see your email, right in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, we joke. Obviously, not only we lucky to have them way more serious problems in the world. That was kind of fun. It was kind of fun. For me, it was Mando at midnight and then Bad Batch early in the morning, and I had to avoid social media, spoilers, reactions, all those kind of things. And I found the way to do it because we all have that habit, whether we want to admit it or not. You wake up, you grab your phone within, I don't know, a certain amount of time, right? It's just the way of the world. In those mornings where I know I have the act of grabbing the phone is coming, but I need to stay off social media for Star Wars sakes. I go to an app that is safe. For me, it's the MLB Major League Baseball app. No Star Wars spoilers on there. And I spent some time reading that till I woke up and was able to watch the Bad Batch.
Oh, that is great. My problem with waiting until the morning is, hey, I got a lot going on. I have weird dreams and then all groggy. I'm like, what's going on in the world? Is there anything I really need to know about? Oh, a spoiler for Star Wars and Marvel. I forgot. Yep. I just forget in the morning sometimes. So yeah, I went for the full midnight experience. I watched The Mandalorian. I did not check social media. And then I plunged right into the Bad Batch. I had this weird journey where, I like Black Series, the 6-inch action figures. I do collect some of them, but I don't want to tip into collecting all of them. So they released our beloved Bad Batch 6-inch a while ago, and I kept hoping, like, come on, vintage 3 3/4, my preferred size. And they've released Hunter as a pipeline figure. I don't even know if we've even seen an image of him yet, but that's just Hunter. So it finally got to me of like, you know what? This is absurd that I'm waiting this long to honor Tech by owning him in plastic form. So I had ordered a Tech action figure, and I always take photos for Mandalorian of my drink, and one of the action figures. I was like, hey, Bad Batch, Midnight Experience. I am going to take a photo of Tech and my drink. And sure enough, the second I allowed myself to look at social media again, which was after I watched a Bad Batch episode, people had responses to the image of, how did you know? And no. So I was very correct that I could not look at social media, even responses to my own entirely innocent tweets celebrating Tech until it was over. And then, my Midnight Experience was honestly like, love that Mando episode, wrote down notes, really, really enjoying the Bad Batch episode. And it was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to be able to watch everything and still be to bed at 2 a.m. And the episodes were so good, but so devastating. I sat up until like 3:30 a.m. just processing. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't always open my figures. I'm not even doing a not unboxing video. And I took the time to open Tech and pose him. And it was a little bit of processing the pain for me.
Yeah, no, I think needed. I think that was shared with a lot of the community, and I like, Tech's been your favorite, and you have the great Tech tribute video out, which was done halfway through the season, so you didn't even know then. But I saw that. You even had used a GIF right on the Force Center.
I did
on the Force Center, and people. So the thing we didn't know, it's just Justin's favorite guy, which is why this hurts so much.
Yeah, but the GIF I used too, because I wanted to really let people know that we consider Mando and Bad Batch just as important, that we were going to record this the next day. So I did that tweet, and then I was like, I just want a fun, hey, salute. So I found the GIF of Tech saluting, but in retrospect, it also just looks like he's saying, and goodbye, which is horrible. Yeah.
Didn't know.
Yeah, didn't know. So that was our viewing experience. We're going to get into our overall reactions, but I don't want to bury the lead. There's so much that's interesting in these episodes that's important. The discussion of what will happen next in the story, when will we get news, all that stuff. But I want to talk about Tech just off the top. How did the death hit you? Were you surprised? How did it hit you emotionally as you were watching? Take me through your journey.
This is there's a lot there, and I did the crying up front. I'll say I actually didn't cry, which doesn't mean I don't cry at media, including commercials. I literally had a shocked feeling, right? And not just, I think we'll get into the choice of it, but I think it is a real honest and raw and brave choice to do. Not that I want to see any of these characters die, but we can talk about what we might think happens later. But so in that moment, I just had that, and I'm not lying. I think you and I have known each other for so long. I literally thought, oh, Joseph, because it just, I know what he means to you, and I know what he means to so many people. But I thought it was really earned in a way. There's everything about it this whole season, and looking back, even you see signs. We'll talk about it. There's some goodbyes from Tech. Not in this episode. There's some lines in this episode. Saw Gerrera has a devastating one about leading to this. Essentially, not that they're clues Easter eggs, but just like what was going on in the episode. So, it's sad to say, but if this makes any sense, it was one of my favorite Star Wars moments.
It was, it was incredibly powerful. It hit me really strongly. Afterwards, I saw some great discussion on social media of the Plan 99 theory. We've known the title of this episode is Plan 99 for a long time. You and I don't really get into looking ahead at the titles in analyzing, but a couple people had what turned out to be a very spot on theory from a while back of this is a reference to Clone 99, One of the first clones that we met, who was really, really different, who was a brother no matter what, and sacrificed himself for the greater good of the clones. And people looking ahead going, Plan 99 must be Bad Batch's code for one of us has to go to save the rest. And then people going back and forth of, is it Tech or is it Crosshair? And I feel like the show did a great job of it did raise the bar for Tech. We spent a lot of time with Tech this season. He went through some great evolution. I think that's what you want to do to prepare for a loss like this. And I think it was done in an elegant way. I remember watching episodes of the show 24 where like, this random asshole suddenly has a child and, saved a cat kind of thing. And like, oh, okay, well, so it was, bye. It can be done in media in extremely inelegant ways. And I think it maybe they tip their hand to some viewers. But I was just processing it as this is a story about change and evolution and definition of who you want to be. And Tech is experimenting and trying other versions of who he could be and making connections. And I just took it as great storytelling about Tech that only made me love Tech more. Yeah. So it only hit me harder. When I was watching the first time, I think I was almost watching like Tech. I was shocked. I absolutely was emotionally affected, but the episodes were set up so well with a sense of doom, a sense of heightened stakes for this mission. We can get into how that was done. And as soon as Tech separated from the group, it felt like this might be on the table, I went into sort of logical writer brain. And I don't know if that was to guard my emotions.
Warm blanket logic.
Yep. I was like kind of in shock and also like, well, this is the logical choice narratively. I reacted like Tech. Don't get me wrong. I am affected. I'm deeply saddened. I do not want this. However, if one could chart the trajectory of the narrative. So I was kind of in shock, but had a little bit of the buffer of writer brain. And when I rewatched this morning, knowing what was going to happen and just feeling it, got to be honest, total tears. It was extremely effective, extremely well done. Yeah.
Extremely well done. Elegant's a great way to say it. Yeah. There's those moments in a lot of other shows. Game of Thrones did a lot too, of just the character that gets the random monologue that you're like, oh, that's not good for Barrington. Nope. So I don't think there was any of that. But look, not just the season, this episode, I think that's why the second viewing, I was a little bit more emotional because I'm not saying these are simple little Easter eggs, but like him by himself, even when they're going into the fortress, right? He's sliding, he's separate. You just start to see it. And I think so. Knowing it's that thing of just knowing, oh God, that's a last goodbye, possibly. And we're going to talk about theories and stuff afterwards, but in the moment, I'm taking this as what it is. So look, the second viewing was like, but you won't be back. Oh, even with Omega and stuff with her, some of the Fee Genoa conversation. These episodes were really effective because of that.
Yeah, no, I really agree. And I think there's an interesting question of, why do fictional deaths affect us? And I think they affect us in lots of different ways. There's the just being totally immersed in the story and you're connected with the character. And, like so many people identify with Tech. So it feels like something is happening to you, right? That's the height of what storytelling, what art can do, is to make you truly feel a part of it. So to feel like this is happening to you. There's that great level that I think is happening here. And then there's the actual loss, right? Sometimes characters die in a movie and that was going to be the only movie they were in anyway. And it's emotionally affecting. Or sometimes it's a season finale of a show and you're bothered because you didn't want that to be the end of the character's narrative. But with something like Bad Batch that looks like the show is going to continue, there's the actual loss of the character from your life of like, there's a possibility, and we'll talk more about this, but there's a possibility we'll watch 2 more seasons of Bad Batch and our friend Tech just won't be there. That is the way that it hits me of like, but this is an actual loss because this squad is going to go on and he very well might not be there. How do you feel about those perspectives of how fictional deaths affect us?
You're describing exactly, I think, the core of it. You hang out with these people, you spend time with these people, and their potential loss should hurt, right? If it's done right, and it feels weird sometimes going forward. All right, fine, I'll make one of my 15th Game of Thrones episode reference of a show here for us. But like, yeah, there's that, you go back, you're like, oh, God, I remember season 2 when we were hanging out with those friends. But it does feel that it doesn't mean it's different or not as good or anything as a viewer. It's just, it's a loss. It's a loss. That's why this stuff works so much. This is why I think I make the argument that pop culture is our culture. It is our not just our water cooler to discuss cool Batman moments, but it's to discuss what we feel and what we think and what we want to do and what we want to be and who we want to be. And these characters drive that, and your connection to Tech, other people's connection with Tech, it's powerful for so many wonderful real life reasons. So it is a loss of a friend. And why do we do this to ourselves? I don't know. But also I think we need it because maybe you're going through a loss in your life and potential losses, and maybe this helps process it. Maybe it hurts even more. I don't know. It's all our own journeys, but I think you're touching on something of why it is so deep. It's like, I always make the connection to music. We talk about music a lot here, but right, that's so personal. That's so personal. So when that artist writes that song, you think they're hanging out with you. They're talking to you. It's not just simple parasocial modern relationships, but it's heart to heart. If the artist is doing, what they're capable of, it connects and hurts in that way. So that's why, George Harrison dies in 2001. And that was, it was like an uncle left because his music had saved me during a time in my life. And the connections are powerful. And the Bad Batch has just, I don't know, in particular, Bad Batch has done it more than other Star Wars for me recently. And that's not saying I don't love Kenobi and all this. God, I was so moved by that show. And Book of Boba Fett, there's some moments that I love. Mando's great. This show, it's just the 16 episode, maybe slower burn. I don't know what it was. I really do feel that it is it's a loss in your life.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, no, I think you're saying a lot of really powerful things. And I think it is one of the things that makes Bad Batch not entirely different, because it certainly is tons of Star Wars characters that people are connected to, because they're this bright spot in this dark time in the galaxy. And even the episodes that are a little bit more fun, a little bit more character building, but the stakes aren't huge. It had this really unique, like, that you and I have talked about throughout our podcast. Other people have too, of like, I'd just watch them play cards. I'd watch them just have a sitcom on Pabu because I love them. I love these characters and I like spending time with them. And I think that really drove home the like, but I want to spend more time with Tech.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah. Anyways, we miss you, Tech. Maybe.
We miss you, Tech. Yeah. And just quick tribute to the actual way the death was constructed, the way the episode was constructed. There was so much going on in heightening the stakes of it's Tarkin on Tarkin's planet, right? I will save my saw vitriol for later, but that was a part of it, right? Yes. The aftermath, not just being somewhat inventive, right? It wasn't just or slow-mo or things that have become a little, tropey. It was that, hey, they escaped their lives because of Tech, but that in a visceral way, right? Omega's wounds and that long sequence of her disoriented and not even fully aware of the escape, and then the gasp when the memory came back to her. Everything in the rest of the episode, the visceral shattered goggles, the blaster in Hunter's cheek, trailing smoke from the Marauder. It's just like everything after Tech's passing is wounded and limping. Even AZ's line of, you each sustained multiple injuries. However, you will all make a full recovery with proper treatment and rest. And it feels like he's not just talking about the physical injuries. AZ is, but I'm taking that as, the loss of tech, and also like screaming at the screen, like, and I know they're not going to get proper treatment and rest. You can feel it. So I think everything that followed, it wasn't tropey. It was about disorientation, wounded, half strength, trailing smoke. Everything was just telling the plot, telling their situation, but emotionally, it made you feel the loss in fresh and creative ways.
It's something very real about it. Even, I know what you're saying about AZ. It's a line with two purposes, but I don't know. I just like. I just like I don't know. The end. For instance, I think at the end of the movie Rushmore, there's a great sequence of, at least nobody got hurt. Well, I did, but the show, but it still ends in kind of a hopeful vein because that's life and process and moving on. There's something about what you're describing. Just the sequence you're right, because it's the slow motion and you're looking into Tech's eyes and it's horrible. But God, the next beat where the train gets back on the track and boom, and then you go the crash sequence, and that added to the effectiveness of what it did to me, because even it's like, all right, the one Tech sacrifice is why I did it to saving it, but then it's just chaos after. I love that sequence. Again, it's always weird to say I love, because we got death, we got pain, we got trauma, but the car exploding through the blurry slow motion. You and I've joked and said several times, you have the great way. Hey, I tell my wife I love her every day. I'm going to say Bad Batch is beautiful. It's a gorgeous show. This medium been around for 100 years, decades, animation. I really believe this show, but specifically season 2, has just done things that I've never really felt, not seen, but felt in animation before for me. And I'm saying a lot of people, I cried it up too. I know Pixar movies are great. I'm not saying that hasn't happened before. Probably a Bugs Bunny cartoon I got emotional on as a kid, but I just think just stuff like that, sequences like that. It's not just like it's quote like live action. It's just doing something specific and special for the medium, and all that whole sequence really added to the effectiveness of the death.
No, I really agree, and I think that's a part of my overall reaction to these episodes is that on one hand they feel so familiar and comfortable because they are building on this now long legacy of Star Wars animation, from Clone Wars to Rebels to Resistance to Tales of the Jedi. It's doing what all those animated shows have done really well. The characters are real and vulnerable and relatable, and you're pulling for them. You pulled for Ahsoka, you're pulling for Ezra and Sabine. Tragedy when Kanan passes, and you feel Ezra's pain. It's because it's animated, they can really go all out with the epic space fantasy of the worlds and the vehicles and the designs and the creatures, the ongoing commitment that we always joke about to show a ship land all the bleeping way. Taking characters and places and ideas from live action Star Wars and building them out and making them even richer. All this stuff that I think has been done in all of these Star Wars animation series, Bad Batch does. But there's also something new that you're talking about. I think it's because the animation, the actual animation, has leveled up so much. Kevin Kiner has been at it for so long. He continues to level up. There's also this new time period that we haven't really explored that is so much about trauma and darkness and trying to be a little spark of light in an extremely dark time. I think that style of storytelling of we're going to take all this hope and light and fun and bizarre space fantasy, and it's gonna struggle to keep a flame in this dark time. That has made Bad Batch really special and different to me. Yeah. And I would love to package what you say and send it out to the world, because I just know too many Star Wars fans, and this isn't a judgment. It's just almost like but why? Too many Star Wars fans just have overlooked this show. And again, I say that as someone who I just don't connect with Pixar stuff as much as other people. I just don't. So I get it. I get there. It's not just that you're snooty or snobby about animation. Sometimes it just feels different. But I think it's your term leveled up. It's leveled up in a way. The water on Pabu, everyone talked about that. You couldn't have done that 5, 10, 15 years ago when Clone Wars started and had the same feel. It matters. It's not just, again, I don't want it to seem like, oh, it feels like live action. No, it's
it's doing its own thing, but hitting emotional levels maybe you couldn't do before. So hats off to the entire team, all the people sitting and working on the animation, designs, all that stuff. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast between the peace and beauty of Pabu and the darkness and horror of Mount Tantus, right? Like you feel that because the animation is so good. All right, so before we get into some of the big ideas and kind of analyzing what's going on in these 2 episodes, the last tech thing I do want to talk about is the obvious question of, is it permanent? I have some theories we were talking about off air. Do you think it's permanent? Do you want it to be permanent?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit. You have shared me a theory you have. We don't do theories and predictions too much around here, but sometimes when you follow the stories and stuff, it makes a lot of sense. So I'll say this right now. I heard yours and I really love it, but love it in the sense of, oh God, that makes too much sense. So I'll let you share it in a second. I'll say this. I think it's real. It's real for what it is in the moment. Like look, season 3, we're all sitting there at a convention, and Dave Filoni probably, because he'll still get credit, and of course he's creator, executive producer, but it'll say, "Do you guys want to see a trailer?" And it'll show up, and tech will be there. We're all cheering, "Yay, baby!" Right? I could see that, and a lot of people made jokes. Or no deaths in Star Wars are permanent. Yeah, totally. That's totally right. It's totally a Star Wars thing. There's just something about the emotions of this moment that I don't think it was played for that. Similar to the Kanan death. You mentioned the Kanan. That one is a moment that got me and so many fans. That was a tear-jerking one too. And out of respect for the moment and what the characters feel, it would be to bring him back would have to be done in a careful way. You said elegant earlier. I think that's an example. That's a good word for this example. But I personally think so. Sorry, it sounds like I'm at a sports book, not want to put my bet down. I think he is dead. Mm-hmm. I think that is it for tech that we know. But I say that because I slide you in here with some thoughts that are, I think, really intriguing.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of great things. It does remind me of Kanan's death. The difference for me is I feel like Kanan, for me, and I know other people had a different emotional journey. Kanan was the first time I was introduced to Kanan, my first reaction was, when's he going to die?
Yes.
Because that was even more of a time when Luke was not just the one who was meant to solve this problem. He was one of the only functioning Jedi at the time. And, they've done a great job of telling that story, and they're going to get more of Ahsoka being taken off the board and Ezra being taken off the board. But even though I cried when Kanan passed, I was ready for it. I had been ready for it. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready for tech. So I do think they're comparable, but my personal journey was different. I was, I don't mean to be mean, but I was watching my clock of like, when's it happening? In that the episode where it happens, it's set up so well. And tech was an utter shock to me. But I do think the sacrifice is real. The moment is real. Mm-hmm. I'm not in any way saying like, oh, I bet he lived. I bet he's going to be, he just needs some cybernetic legs and it'll all be fine. Right. I do think that he is gone. That is my instinct in the way it was played feels like it is sincere. Mm-hmm. What I am intrigued by is Hemlock bringing the goggles. Obviously, that's taunting and visceral, but this confirmation that remains were retrieved makes me feel like an idea that could be in play is cloning tech, either because Hemlock thinks there's value in it. If they have, hey, we're getting lots of cloning information. We know from Pershing, they don't need a lot. Right. One strand, right? To make a replica. So I think it's possible that a replica of tech is created. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be a really interesting philosophical, moral discussion of it'll be tech, the person with the skills and the perspective, but not the life experiences, not the memories, not the changes that this tech went through. So the reason that I'm not that is even a possibility in my mind is because it seems like it has interesting, rich storytelling, instead of just like, oh, he lived, or, oh, they made another one. But this idea of like, we have him back, but because of the entire history of who clones are, they are individuals. They're born individuals. And even then they grow by their experiences, that he is tech and he is not tech. He is not our tech. So I could see something where he was actually brought back. I can see something where that maybe there's a temptation by the batch to go, we can do this. We can fix this. And maybe even an arc where Omega wants to, or tries to, or is tempted to, and decides to just let it be, let go. I feel like those goggles are not done.
Yeah. Yes. So I again, love it in the sense of none of this is happy, but no. It's following the themes, and it's obviously what we do here, what we talk about here, and something that's close to your heart of following the themes. That's why I don't get into the prediction game, because often it's just, hey, what do you think is going to happen next in terms of plot, which is it's totally fun too, because I have a lot of that coming out of this episode. Trust me. But his death, and we're going to, not to step on our theme talk, but I think Saw Gerrera is the heart of this episode, but it's a dark heart. I think he's the thesis, please, of this episode. We'll get into that. So, but that's why that leads me thematically to Tech's death being real as we know it now, and they won't pull back from that. And what you're describing to me goes deeper into what the show, I think specifically this season's done. Clones are property. No, they're people. You got the debate. And even Tark in the debate, we'll get into the debate at the table, but that's the debate there. Are you sure we want to do this? I serve with them. They seem pretty cool. I serve with them. They did not seem cool because they seem to form personality. That's what's at stake. And we're not just, it's not clones for sci-fi sake. What the Emperor wants to do is impossible. We don't quite know what that is. I know everyone's excited about maybe bigger connections, but no secret that the Palpatine's been thinking about cloning stuff and what you can do with it for a long time. Zillo Beast, all that stuff. The fact that the clone army exists, like all that's there. And asking why. And the entire 7 seasons of Clone Wars over a large amount of time has been about who are these clones? The property, assets, what are they? And what you're describing, Tech coming back, or Tech being involved, Hemlock being there, the goggles. It could be as simple as I'm thinking of the Return of the King director's cut version of the Mouth of Sauron comes out and throws the chainmail that Frodo had and says, oh, he's dead, and he isn't, and hope lives. It could be that. The goggles could represent that. But I really think you got this great villain in Hemlock right now, and there's some thematic power, what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it will become more clear as we learn more about the next step of storytelling. I definitely hope there's a season 3. If not, I hope that there's a really great film. But we had talked about, so we should own it, that we were both getting endgame vibes of they're going to rescue Crosshair and retire on Pabu. And there was definitely some of that, but nope. A lot more story introduced. So it was like the horror of losing Tech, and then the hope of where will the story go. And I think, as this story reveals itself of what's next, what's at stake with the newly revealed sister, I think there might be Tech's presence will be felt if it is the choice to clone him, the choice to not clone him, or just his memory and his sacrifice and what it means and how it should be looked at and processed. I think, Tech's not dead in that way.
Hey, you're breaking my heart with this, to clone him or not, as if it comes down to Omega making a decision and having to let it go. It's similar to World Between Worlds. You can't save Kane and you can't go back. God, that'll hurt. But again, you're right, Oda. There was the thought of you and I had of, hey, this season 2 might seem to be it. One, I think we should just, business wise, right? It's so tough to predict what's going on with streaming, even though animation, the lead time is very long. So you could think that, hey, maybe they got season 3 already, but things change rapidly. Just because the show's ready doesn't mean they don't mothball it, right? Just because we have episodes sitting there. Look at Clone Wars season 6 is a great example. So I think there was some fear on our part on that. Not that we're living in fear, but just some reality. But thematically, again, the themes, it wasn't as you suggested. We talked about, hey, retirement on Pabu is still at play, but they're not joining the rebellion. The rebellion, as we know it, is definitely not formed yet. Rex is off. He's on, quote, a mission. Like that Echo saying the stuff of, it's about saving our brothers right now. That stuff seemed to have you could then, this show is wrapped up and now we can go experience something else. Maybe spin off the Rex and Echo hour. I'm all for it. But they, in this finale, not only, pretty confident a third season right now, but it just, it goes, these themes are still at play. And now there's some more things to discuss about those themes. That to me, it still is about the clones, the brothers, the sisters, the identities of the clones, and not necessarily we're all forming up cells to join Luthen, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Perrin. No, wait, he's out. Maybe at this time he's in. You know what I mean? And so that's why I still think, we're dealing with that to the end.
No, I really agree. I think that a lot of the possibilities are still there, and I'm excited that there's more storytelling because I think they deserve even more room to breathe. But I think we're kind of right in them setting up the possibilities of where this could go. So, let's get into that. That's just our quick overall look. Now let's really dive in.
God bless you, Force Center fans. You go on long journeys with us, and I love y'all. I love y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like we needed to talk about the tech of it all at the top. And hey, we're not done. We're going to dive into the big themes, the ideas at stake in this two-part finale. I think we're going to similar places, but maybe have some different words for it. So I'm very curious to see how you thought about what was at stake in these two episodes. Where'd you go?
Yeah. Oh, righty. Let's see the big ones. This is one of those moments where I definitely have some notes, but I really kept focusing on two big ones here. And I think there's this continued thing here about we get clones as people, right? Which seems like almost a generic jokey bumper sticker, but it's about making choices for themselves and making choices for the benefit of others as opposed to the property they're viewed as, definitely by Hemlock saying that. I even love some of the stuff later on with Hemlock. I'm fascinated by your paternal instincts, Hunter. Like, do you think you're people? Like, there's that kind of angle. There's no choice. They're property. They'll have no choice to submit to my things. But the other side of that is again, they were viewed as assets by the Republic from a certain point of view. Not saying that everyone thought of them as just that in a cold sense, but we've seen that struggle. We saw the Pongkrell of it all, but even some of the Jedi having to, how do you form the bonds? Yoda's lessons from the very beginning. But I was in my head of like, what does that really mean? Got it. Clones are people, but about making these choices. Hemlock saying they have no choice. And then you got Tech making a choice, and making a choice for others. Was a big one for me. And then I'll slide in here and we'll keep going. But that leads into, I'm not just making a Last Jedi reference, but save what you love, not fight what you hate, right? Or as I call it, Saw Gerrera's slide into madness continues. And out of that, the finer pinpoint theme I want to put out there, Joseph, is that line I think you and I are talking about. And I'm actually kind of paraphrasing some of it. Saw saying, "Hey, you want me to save a few prisoners? We're trying to take down an empire." And then him saying that you have to sacrifice for the greater good. And my thing out of that is, then what is the greater good? And this is an episode and a series that's analyzing that as well. Greater good, awesome. What is that? And these two episodes kind of zeroed down on that for me.
I love that. I really love a lot of the ideas you're talking about. I love focusing on Saw's line of sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. This is one of the lines where the character that I think we disagree with, and I know personally I'll say I disagree with, I'm viscerally furious at Saw Gerrera.
Can I say, because yes, I love Saw Gerrera, but I love that every time Saw Gerrera shows up, someone who has a righteous anger, a right to righteous anger because of what's happened to him. It is this big question of how do you deal with that and what can become of you during that. And that's one of those things of similar. I love of Palpatine. I love Palpatine because of what he represents. And Forrest Whitaker and Andrew Kashino, right? I didn't write his name. I always apologize. Who does this voice? They do such a great job because anytime he shows up, I'm like, oh, we got some philosophical questions to deal with, don't we?
Yep. And I don't get me wrong. I love the character. I love every one of his appearances. I think he's a fascinating, important character. But I think in many episodes of his various appearances, you've been like, well, he's rough around the edges and he's, make some choices that are, you wouldn't want to make those choices during peacetime, but maybe you got it during war. And hey, is Saw right? Is Mothma being too cautious? Do you need to push forward? Like all those things have always been on the table. But I think there was a lot here in this episode that pushed forward the idea that we've talked about before is, why is Saw doing this? And what is he accomplishing? What did he accomplish in 19 years that, yes, the Empire is horrific and the Empire must be fought. But are you just lashing out in anger because it makes you feel better, because it makes, every Imperial you kill, you feel like you are getting back for Stila. You're getting back for losing Onderon. Every scar that they've given you, you're giving back to them. Is that where it's coming from? And if that's where it's coming from, are you actually accomplishing anything? And what are you hurting along the way? And I think he says the line, sacrifices have to be made for the greater good, which is also the philosophy that leads Tech to execute Plan 99 and make a sacrifice for the greater good of the squad. But there's a contrast of Saw. The thing that Saw is fighting for is ill-defined and ineffective. And what Tech is fighting for, what Rex and Echo are fighting for, all the fights that we've seen the Bad Batch do have been precise, and they could tell you exactly what the greater goods are. Like in the con side, we took these risks. In the pro side, we brought Gungi back to his people. We know what the greater good was. We know exactly what we were risking for and why. This whole episode, what happens to Tech, hinges on, why are you doing this? What exactly is it accomplishing? And the overall way that I kind of looked at this big picture theme is the idea of evolution versus repetition. And the Bad Batch really representing inability to grow, to change, to adapt, versus Saw just punching the same wall and barely making a crack and claiming he's making a difference. Just to kind of go into some of the details and the supporting evidence, right? The Bad Batch as a squad and as individuals really challenge themselves to change. And all of the horror that is rained down on them in these episodes is explicitly because of the repetitive choices of Saw and Sid, who cling to repetitive, destructive ways. That's my big picture thesis. But if you look at what's going on in the episode, as a squad, this discussion about evolution has been hanging over them since the beginning of, who are we now that we're not soldiers of the Republic? Are we mercenaries, rebels, bounty hunters? Are we like Echo and Rex, saviors to the helpless? What are we? Saw kind of reframes that big picture choice for the squad when he, references, I believe, the second episode and says, I told you on Onderon you had a choice to make. Looks like you've chosen, right? Of just like, there's no other choice than to just run screaming, blasters blazing at the Empire. And finally, after all of this, these whole 2 seasons of storytelling, Hunter and Wrecker do make their decision. And we get this great quote from Hunter saying to Omega, the galaxy has changed, and so have we. It's time to put being soldiers behind us for good. Hunter is directly answering the question of the show. He's answering Saw's question about make a decision. And what he's saying is, hey, every instinct in my body is to be a soldier. Come up with a plan, make a list of targets, go hit them. And that's how you do it, right? But Hunter's looking around and acknowledging that doesn't work anymore because the galaxy isn't the same. The fight against the Empire isn't the same as the Clone Wars. And if what's most important to me in my heart is the squad, keeping them alive, helping people who I come across who need help, then I'll do that. Then I'll be that. I'll change. And for Hunter to be the one who says it, I thought was really powerful in these 2 episodes. I got some more thoughts, but I want to pause there and get your reaction on that clear sort of like Saw states, you should make this rigid decision that I've been telling you which is basically don't change, be soldiers.
Yeah.
Versus Hunter finally going, no, I want to be something different.
Thank you for handing me the armor hammer that we can talk. No. I joke. I love this. There's so many things there. And I always joke that I'm like Wrecker and I just boil things down to bumper stickers. I want to make sure some of the stuff you say is so profound, but in this wonderful way that you can carry on with you, and not just me as a podcast partner of you, but as a listener. Evolution versus repetition is beautiful words there, friend. And it's so much of what it's about. I'll start about the Hunter of it all, because we've been, all of us have been asking, right? There's a little bit at times even frustration with Hunter. Come on, man. Come on. Join the fight. Join the fight. And so when Echo comes in and kind of says a couple episodes ago, and this is maybe general, but hey, it's more about saving our brothers. I put quotes around that. That also means sisters and everything, and just fellow clones. That's more what this is about right now. We are far removed, and it's not like Echo and Rex are saying, "Hey, we might form a rebellion. I hear there's some things here. There's this guy Dodonna." It's none of that. It's none of that, and it's a spiritual rebellion, but it begins with that. That's what our mission is, and so that starts changing the game. And so exactly what you're saying, Hunter to have this moment. You say he answers the show questions. He answers himself finally. Yeah, everything's changed. And this is what we got to do. We got to be part of that, and the focus. The shift, obviously not working with Sid no more. I guess that's officially done. But here's my Sid thoughts. God damn it, Sid! Even though that was pretty much one of the safest bets to happen. Like I think everyone like chips down. Oh, Sid, maybe because I love Rhea Perlman so much. Anyways, but so from that, I want to go back to a little bit of the Saw stuff here. Is you're so right. I think. Saw is such a great character because you can, number one, you understand a lot of where it comes from. A lot of his quotes make a lot of great sense. They're inspirational. They're posters. They will not take our land type of stuff. I'm thinking of that line that a lot of people reference, the Empire, I'm paraphrasing, the Empire treats us like criminals. At least I act like one, right? He says that to Mothman. That I've seen people put that out there. And I guess, yeah, there's some inspiration to it. But what is the actual thing? You had some great thoughts of Saw when he shows up in Andor. That's kind of what's going on. Great, buddy. You're still where you started 19 years ago when we left you. You're still doing it. And I think that what you're kind of touching on is, yeah, you could have those conversations. Does removing Tarkin have some value? I could think so. Yeah, I could think so. Krennic, all these things. Sure. But what this show is doing, we have the benefit of knowing something about Saw, that it doesn't really work. We've seen that. We know there's some great things along the way. There's some great maybe intentions, but we know he's this character that represents this stuff. So to me, the show using him here wasn't a fun Easter egg. It was I love Saw. So he shows up great. It wasn't a fun Easter egg. It was a statement. It was a statement on Saw and all the thoughts on how to do this. Save what you love, not fight what you hate. It's not just a wonderful quote from a movie some of us, most of us, maybe many love. It's not just that, but this show is like, here's the guy who keeps bleeping things up, but he does it, and you might get behind him because a lot of people do. I love the battle. Sorry, the Jedi Fallen Order stuff for Saw is great too, because you're seeing people go, his own people are going, why is he doing this? Starting to question it. So it's not just that Saw's a bad guy, a bad character. Everything about him starts from absolutely honest, truthful, I get it place. And to see it, I think for the show to use him in this way in this episode was so purposeful. It was wonderful. I loved it.
No, I really agree. And I think you can find isolated moments where hey, Saw pushed other people forward and, totally. he stayed true to you have to take action, all those things. But that Last Jedi line from Rose is so good because it takes so much philosophy that existed in Star Wars and it makes it into something, an ideology that you can hold and wield and express quickly. And it's a torture test to see, is what we're doing going to be productive? Because if we're just lashing out in anger with no mind of, is this really the best for the big picture strategy? It's not going to be effective, and it's not going to help anybody in the long run. It's maybe even going to hurt yourself. Whereas if you're like, we're saving what we love, then that's a mindset of, how is this going to help in the big picture? Is it truly strategically valuable. It's not the question of should we do something or not do something, which is the way Saw seems to always want to frame it, right?
Yes, yes.
It is this going to be valuable? Which is what Tech puts to him, right? Of saying like, Tarkin high stakes, but there'll be another Tarkin. I mean, Tech I don't think really knows this, but hey, Thrawn got taken off the board, and now Tarkin's here. And if Tarkin gets taken off the board, who else will be there next?
Yeah.
Is that really what we're trying to do? So I feel like this contrast is made massively. Go back to just the Bad Batch themselves for a minute to show their sort of success at evolving, right? It's not just their big Hunter and Wrecker's big decision of it's okay to go back to Pabu. This whole mission is the Bad Batch pushing themselves to change, and it comes out in not even to change, but to show their growth, and it comes out in fun little jokes, right? But like they're not usually good at quiet infiltration, but they have to be, because this is a situation for them where going in blasters blazing isn't going to accomplish what they need. Right now on this mission, they need information, not destruction, to save Crosshair, to save, and the rest of the clones, to save what they love. And it comes out in funny ways of, Echo saying, no tanks and no explosions this time, Wrecker, right? But we watch them through these 2 episodes, almost all individually, push past fears and anxieties and demonstrate new learned skills. It's a joke, but we see Wrecker facing his fear of heights. We see Wrecker acknowledging and working with his lack of subtlety, right? Of knowing that I can't, this is not a noisy one. And we see Omega, who is wanted to be, an equal member of the squad who takes risks, venturing out on her own to put the tracker on the ship. Per Wrecker's suggestion, Wrecker is there not just worrying about her and containing her, supporting her as a full member of the squad. So it's a small thing with Echo, but I like how we were reminded of he is aware that the Empire systems have evolved, partially in response to the big, loud, explosive things Bad Batch has done in the past. He's aware for this. Hunter makes this big decision that we already talked about. There's all these images of change, growth, evolution. Perhaps the biggest, Tech gives his life for literal forward movement. That's one of the things that makes it so powerful and so painful to watch him fall and to see that train engage and fly forward, it's literal in the visuals. And I think the stasis and the repetition of Saw is there too. It's this, his blunt, angry, pointless attack. It literally is shown to stall the Batch's evolution. The Batch is moving forward. They took a massive risk, did a mission that they're not normally good at to keep it quiet, and they were on their way out, even after Saw bleeped it up. And his pointless, angry, just wanting to hurt him, attack literally stalls their physical movement forward, and Tech has to give his life to get that forward movement back. It is Saw's fault. It is Tech's choice, but it's Saw's fault. And I will give you the talking hammer back. But the other thing that's important to me is Tarkin, his planet. If you know those things, those are high stakes. It makes it even more frightening that they are there. If they're caught, they are in trouble, right? And to see the image of this fortress, embedded in rock above the clouds, it's so brutal and it's such strength, and all of Saw with his fury and his commitment that attack is the right thing. He wounds the base a little bit, but it shakes. It shakes a little bit, but nowhere near enough to crumble. In that image, that idea, that is the Empire right now. And that's what Saw won't reckon with. The Empire is too strong. And what the galaxy needs is what Rex and Echo are doing. what the Bad Batch has done. Rescue people, help them, get them back on their feet, build coalitions, save what you love to prepare for the fight in the future. Because this isn't the fight right now. You're just, you're throwing eggs at a tank and patting yourself on the back, Saw Gerrera, and you got Tech killed for it.
Work it out. Joseph. This is great. You're gonna watch this. No, I love this. I love this. Take the talking hammer all day.
No, it's yours now, because I just wanted to get through that picture, that the movement versus the lack of movement, the lack of effect of Saw's petulant little raid that Tech tries to talk him out of. I feel strongly about, obviously. Yeah,
well, obviously, obviously, because he hurt your boy. No, he got your boy killed. No, because there's so many wonderful things in there. Because I think it's, again, going back to even just the lines of Saw and what he represents. It's easy to do what Saw does. If you ain't blowing him up with me, you ain't doing nothing. Right? Mm-hmm. Easy to get behind, because that does sound good. It probably feels good. When he pressed that button, he probably felt so good throwing that egg at the tank. He turned around and walked away and said, let's have omelets. And the thing shakes. Krennic gets a little nervous. Ramadi's a little like, well, I don't like this. And Tarkin's like, don't worry about it. And so, again, we have the benefit of this. But we keep going to, the save what you love, not fight what we hate thing. Great. When we've all been familiar with that for years, but you're so right. It's just connecting to what's been present in Star Wars since the very beginning. I think we could say safely. But the two measure them out. This is that statement, that philosophy in action. What has Tech done? His stuff has literally saved people, sent them forward, as you pointed out so well. And Saw, you've destroyed some ships and some troopers, and that's it. You have fought what you hate and got nothing. You save what you love, and potentially you live for another day and live for the fight. And all this to say, my final, I guess, point in this section of our conversation about it is it's again, it's easy to look at what Saw's saying and going, yeah, might makes right. Let's go do this. Let's take some rocket launchers and fire them at a mostly civilian event, as he does in the book, Rebel Rising. Excuse me. It's that there, but it's all. So it's easy to be like, well, are you suggesting we shouldn't fight? No, to your point, Joseph, the fight will come. This is stronger. This will make us stronger for the fight, and this will make the fight have more impact. And fight, I don't necessarily mean to suggest in real life that's the action, the actual physical action that we're here to take. And sometimes the real world and Star Wars can mix in dangerous, confusing ways. I want to try to be clear about that. But that whatever quote the fight is, capital F to you, in order to make it stronger, you got to build from here, and it begins with what you're seeing here. That's what Rose is saying. That's what Star Wars is saying, and that's what Tech did in this episode.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you, and I think it's great to make it clear that the question isn't to fight or not to fight. It isn't just step back and assume that things will get better eventually. It's not any of those things. And there are moments, I think, where the rebellion stalls out and they need a push from somebody like Jin or Radis, or even Saw himself sometimes. But in this instance, everything was in that scene when Hunter and Tech confronted Saw and his friend who he got wounded, perhaps killed. And another nameless casualty. So Hunter kind of makes the argument of like, we're trying to save what we love. A bunch of clones are being experimented on and imprisoned. We are here to save what we love. And Saw is here to fight what he hates, to just bring down the Empire. And Tech makes the very logical argument of like, well, they're just going to be replaced. And there's actually a lot of valuable intel. So nowhere in that conversation is don't fight, just sit back and accept it. Right.
Yeah.
It is, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to fight? What's the smartest way to fight? What's going to get us what we actually want in the long run? And you're right. These conversations can bleed into the real world. And I do not want to take anyone's anger away. I think a lot of people have every reason to be angry and every reason to have a lot of fight in their spirit. And I think that we should, but I'll pull back to just something that affects me, because there are things out there in the real world that affect other people more directly and have different lived experiences. And I'm never going to tell them how to feel or how to respond. But for me, like just for, say, voting, there are, policies that matter to me that, my mother needs a specific kind of care that if certain policies happen, she's going to die. And if other policies happen, she's going to live. It's life or death to me. And I want to just swear at people on social media, but that's not going to do anything. The small, annoying, painstaking work of trying to build voter bases so more people vote, that is actually going to make a difference. It doesn't feel as good, and it doesn't feel as direct or as immediate, and it doesn't feel as much like I'm doing thing as if I send, a tweet using all of my anger and wit and get 8 million retweets. That's not going to do a damn thing. But me convincing one other person to vote is. No, we're tipping into the real world, but that's why I feel strongly about this. Is like, I agree with you, Saw. But how are we going to accomplish it? And what really works? And tech is making that argument of like, maybe we should get all their data and sift through it and see if we can do a little productive thing. And so I was like, nah, just call him a bleep on social media.
I think of all the examples to take into the real world, number one, it's very personal for you, and two, it's very specific and it's very important. It isn't about specific names or people in power. You were talking about policies that affect people, affect lives. So I think if you want to take it to that, Saw's going, let's tweet. And again, by the way, tweeting and getting the word out and using platforms, again, yes, totally. But Saw's going exactly what you say. Let's tweet, and text going, but build a voter base to change this. That's kind of the real world example of it. I think that people might need to hear. It works. It works for me.
Yeah. And caveat city, like informative tweets. Sometimes you need an angry tweet because it gives people catharsis. I just know people who like, I know I shouldn't say this. I decided to call this politician this word every day. And I got blocked. And like, I'm sure it felt good, but did it help any of the people that politician is hurting? Yeah. Caveat city. Yes, there's, anger is real and right and justified in so many ways. I never want to suggest, shut that down. Just go ahead and write a poem and, let's try. We'll write an angry poem. But I know what you mean. I think this episode, this show, Star Wars itself is analyzing great. What do we do with this? How do we do this? And especially because we've seen kind of Endgame, not just with Saw, but with the Rebellion. Farm Boy blows up Death Star. Awesome. But that wasn't even the end of the fight. And let's take a look at why. Let's take a look at why. And I think that's what Star Wars continues. Yeah. It's coalition. It's helping. It's as you said. Leia doesn't treat Wicket with respect and kindness, and there's nothing. Anyway, I also do think Sid is part of this whole kind of evolution versus repetition, right? Like,
let's talk about Sid.
Some of the best animation acting ever. The look of utter bleeping shame. Right? Shame. But it's just like, it's exactly what we're talking about of like, yep, it's not immediate, but we're building a base. We're building it through connection. The squad has been there for her. Tech's also the one who enumerated, hey, remember these things that we did that were not really about missions objectives. They were about helping you because you were in a jam. He reminds her in the crossing, like, you could reciprocate that. And she chooses to not reciprocate that. She doesn't choose to grow from that. She doesn't choose to benefit from that. She instead retreats to old ways that are selfish and destructive. Got to look out for number one. And, also, what did we see in this episode? We didn't really spotlight it, but it's not like Hemlock just swept in and gave her some money and Bolo and Ketch were back in the bar. He's brought the entire boot of the Empire down on the entire city. Her life is bleeped anyway. This is the hardest episode of Fire Force Center for me to not swear.
It's been a while since we let it flow, but bleep city.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? About Sid is also a picture of just repetition, refusal to change and evolve.
Yeah, there's something about her. It's a character we've gotten to know, and I think that there's a little warmth we might have for her, right? And sometimes it's like, I think maybe I find this in real life too, not to take it to those dangerous spots, but hey, sometimes your actions don't line up with your heart, and I know people like that. I think I experienced that in my own life. It's like, I know what my heart is, but man, some of my actions outside of it don't seem to sync up with my heart. And you might have shame with that, or you might have fear. That's a big change point for Sid. What Sid was maybe asked to do by herself, more than even the gang, to not report them, is a big change. It's a fearful tightrope walk forward, and it's not always easy to do. But so you then just I'm going to hold on to this. I need my bar. I can't walk forward. I can't do this. And not only do you not go forward and you affect and hurt those around you, but it's not even good as what used to be. Like you said, Ketch and Bolo are going to be replaced by Stormtrooper 1 and Stormtrooper 2. So I know maybe it's a messy example of real life stuff, but yeah, it's so my anger at her isn't just how dare you. It's like, how dare you do this to yourself? You did this to them first and foremost, but you did this yourself. It doesn't match with who you could be. It does not match. You could be better. Look at your reputation from Malegi all the way down to Figeno. Everyone's been saying to us, this is why this is a plot point that was easily predicted, but everyone's saying this about you, and it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be that person. Your heart is better than that. Let your actions follow that.
Yeah. In terms of a plot point, it wasn't like, what? It had been, set up, and it was more like, when's that going to happen? But what made it powerful is even when they're literally limping to her wounded and are going to leave the second they can, she still does this to them, Right. And that's what gives that, there's not an Emmy for animated lizard performance, but if there was, that look of utter shame, and it goes back to what Hunter said to Omega, the acknowledgement that the galaxy has changed. Even if I want to keep doing things exactly as I am, my actions are not going to get the same result, because you know what? The galaxy has changed. The world has changed. It's not always about personal evolution. And sometimes it's about looking around and going, I would like to do the exact same thing, but it's not going to get me what it used to, because the rules are different now. Yeah.
Everything's changed. That's a great observation.
Yeah.
Love that from Hunter.
Final thing for me on this kind of big picture theme of, evolution versus repetition is was one of the other just great in moving things about Tech's final moments, right? In some ways, it is the most Tech ever, right? He has analyzed the situation. It is, he's doing in the math in his head about how much Wrecker weighs and the tensile strength of that steel and the angle of those V-wings. Like, he knows down to the facts. He knows, right? Yeah. But the spirit that he's doing it in is growth, right? It's rejecting rigidity. It's rejecting stasis. It's embracing the flowing and organic, and the ability to change is in the spirit of his final words, right? Wrecker says, "Don't do it, Tech." And when have we ever followed orders? It's cool because it's the spirit of the Bad Batch, the ones who are different, the ones who are on the outside, the ones who have their own way of doing things, right?
I'm a rebel, Daddy.
I'm going to throw, my badge down on the sergeant's desk and say, all right, I'm going rogue, right? It's got a lot of that 80s in 90s. Like, yeah, and that's always been, the part of the appeal of the Bad Batch. But I think here it even had this greater weight of, we can always find a different solution, and we've never executed Plan 99 before, but this time we gotta. Things change. You gotta be honest about the situation you're in, and it's just for Tech. Those are some pretty punk rock final words, right? Yeah. When have we ever followed orders? It's a great spirit to go out on.
Yeah, no, it's haunting, it's harrowing, and it's beautiful in its own way. An absolute Star Wars hero. Even regardless of what happens, he shows back up with 8 spider legs. We'll deal with that when it happens. But this moment will always be that for me, a true Star Wars hero.
Yeah. And speaking of that, my the other kind of big theme that I thought was emphasized really in the back half, it's in both episodes, but in the back half of the finale, is this idea of sacrifice and the good of the squad. We talked about it a little bit from Saw's perspective, but I think there's a lot going on there, and I'm curious with your thoughts about it, of how that idea plays out. Everything from Tech clearly making the sacrifice, Hunter expressing that too, then Omega wanting to do the same thing, of not wanting to leave the squad. How did you wrestle with all that?
In terms of just the importance of the sacrifice, I want to make sure I'm clear. Because there's some lines I love. There's that real painful line of Tech didn't let us save him from Omega, and it's like it's part of what the lesson she's learning here of the sacrifice, the why, maybe the value.
Well, yeah. Let me frame it a little bit differently. I think the mission that the Bad Batch has always been clear on, that Hunter has always been clear on, even when he's like, are we still soldiers? Are we proto-rebels, mercenaries, bounty hunters? What the label? The thing he's been clear on is we keep one another together and safe. That's what's going on with the entire mission. They are taking this huge, risky mission to save other clones, and specifically Crosshair. Tech gets a lot of the highlight lines. And he says in that first episode, we have not always agreed with Crosshair, but he is still our brother. We do not leave our own behind. So that idea of we don't leave our own behind, that idea of putting the squad over self. Plan 99, which he says to Wrecker, like everybody knows what it is and they've never had to do it, seems to be the idea that if necessary, one of the batch will sacrifice themselves for the others to go on. Hunter kind of says this to Omega, that Tech put the squad ahead of himself. He made a sacrifice. We're not going to waste it. So over the whole course of the show, this specific mission, Tech's sacrifice, everything is about this idea of we're always here for one another. And if necessary, we even sacrifice one another, or sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. And what I'm asking you about is, Hunter tries to send Omega away, and Omega can't do it. She has to go back for them. And in some way she gets captured because of it.
Right.
And I was curious what your thoughts or feelings were about that. Did you feel like, Omega, just run?
Yeah, I know.
Did you feel like, Omega, you're in this, you're honoring Tech? That's what he would do,
Yeah. I know. I think that's a great way of, again, I'll bring in the line of, he didn't let us save him. I think it's a lesson point for her. Painful, tragic, sad one. It would just be simple, get on out like we told you. But I think the reason she goes back is obviously great. Obviously, it's just a great standoff moment we'll talk about in the action. But I don't know if it's even right, but it's like this, it's almost the softer version of the lesson that Saw needs to learn, right? What have you done with this? If just even you go on, there's great value in that. And maybe it's hard. Maybe that's a real life connection too, of when you're the one that's got to go and someone else, you feel the weight of someone leaving you behind. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough to manage. But I think I just think it's not just because she's just young, but she hasn't felt the weight of it yet. And I was not upset at Tech, not upset at Omega. I get it. I think I would have done the same thing. Why wouldn't you have done the same thing? But that goes to what is the greater good. It's the same question, just a softer version of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one of those, like, it's just so heartbreaking of you. Like you want them to be able to all escape together. And, it ends in a fascinating place, but, just continued the pain and the confusion of course, Omega doesn't want to lose them. And she's trying to be a member of the squad of like, yeah, I know the target's on my back, but I'll pop my head up and risk myself, for the greater good of the squad. I thought was really, really powerful. And I love that the ending of this season is a setup to continue this idea of being there for the people you care about, right? We're set up for a story that is all about like, okay, now Hunter's got no ambivalence. He's got a mission. We're going to get her back, and we don't stop searching until we do. I almost wanted him to turn to the camera and say, "Do you hear that, Bob Iger?"
Yeah,
the third season could always already be greenlit, could already be in production, very, very possibly. But,
as long as you don't do the Willow thing of put a first volume on the shelf and have 2 more volumes of your show. And then it's heartbreaking when we learn we're not getting the second and third volume. Don't end your show like that. No, but I'm with you on that. He's speaking, Uncle Bob.
Yeah, he's speaking to all of us, I think. But it is, it is powerful. Do you have any other big picture thoughts on the themes, the ideas of this finale?
No, I wasted all my theme ammo on those 2 big ones.
Well, it's extremely, extremely important, extremely well said. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to dive into some of the action, some of the comedy. There was some comedy, and a lot of big canon and lore questions, and a lot of I think fun questions about what could happen next. So all of that in just a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of the second season finale of Bad Batch. I've calmed down. I've worked through some of my frustration with Saw Gerrera. I love the character, but this episode, man. Anyway, let's get into some favorite action moments. Ken, there was some like great fun pew pew pew, but also a lot of high stakes pew pew pew. What did you like?
Yeah. Looking at my list, gosh, I think I just was so horrified. I didn't write as many as I thought it would because there's a lot of action. I love, you made the reference earlier. We track all the times we get to watch a ship land. There's something I really liked of watching. It's an action. I count this as action because it happens so much in the show, but of watching Hemlock land and walk, and guards are like targeting and the music's playing, and then it goes to like if you push in on Tarkin's compound. You could have just started there, right? So that just this is such a choice with the show. You can make a Filoni reference if he's been having us watch ship land for years, but so is George. So it's a choice, but it's a real choice with great purpose. I just loved watching Hemlock kind of land and go into the evil.
Yeah, the shot of the ship landing was so great because in an episode that did remind us multiple times of the clones' evolution and their individuality, to see his ship land in that lineup of just, brutal sameness to the point where it became a plot point. They're so the same. We have to risk ourselves even more to figure out which one is his. It was a good action shot landing that led to some action.
Yeah.
For me, at the squad's initial suction ascension grappling guns to the sky rail, it was cool. And like, oh boy, I normally go on about how much I like fights that happen in high places. And I did like when some of the stormtroopers fell from high places, but I don't know. I'm going to have some high place trauma after this one. But I really did like that. Attaching to the sky rail was real cool.
Yeah, it's not something I could do easily. Yeah, maybe not at all. Someone asked me, after Star Celebration, I might swing through Paris. I know it's an interesting time over there right now, but I'm planning to be there. And someone's like, "You're going to do the Eiffel Tower?" I can't because of the heights. And I'm like, I love heights. Oh, the fallen gets me. So I don't know. I'm with you. Once again, I'm with you, Rick.
Eiffel Tower is pretty cool. I haven't been there in a long time, but there were no stormtroopers. Just some weird displays of statues. Anyway, I also really liked the Echo's crane swing of the V-wing. That was like great teamwork. Great. Omega did a great job. The hiding sequence is great. But the swing of the V-wing was like great creative action from Echo. And, I don't want to take this too far. It's a crane, and cranes exist in the real world, but it looked a lot like the crane that used to come with a couple of original Kenner Star Wars playsets. There was the Droid Factory playset, and I missed that one somehow. I had the Jabba's Dungeon playset, which was a rework of the Droid Factory playset that was a series exclusive. But it looked a lot like that crane, so that was fun. Yeah,
no, I love that. The Wreckers V-Wing Smash Distraction, patent pending. Absolutely.
Other action moments for you.
There's a one moment in one of the firefights where Hunter is using the stormtrooper as a shield. And that was one of those, hot damn, Hunter, what are you? Yeah, okay, go get him.
Yep. I love it when, Hunter is sometimes ambivalent. So when Hunter's all, let's go, it's so great. I love the shot where Wrecker throws a stormtrooper into several other stormtroopers. There were several moments, some exciting, some sad, where we were reminded of it's hard to take Wrecker down. And I like that one. Yeah.
Until you do. God, it was painful later. But
God, yeah, with the collar. In the second episode, for an action moment of Echo blasting the formerly Republic gunship with the stolen Imperial Walker, it is a cool action moment. It was like, all right, at least Tech and Wrecker are going to be able to fight another day, kind of thing. Yeah. But there was also something about again Hunter saying that the galaxy has changed, and to see a clone shooting down a gunship, right?
Yeah.
And being like, yeah, times have changed. That's not a good ship anymore.
No, yeah, no. It was so Star Warsy, right? Obviously, dancing Ewoks there, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Any other action moments for you?
I'm gonna go. I'm going into episode 16 here. Let me make sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The entire sequence with Tech.
Yeah.
The reason I say it's a top flight, heroic action, sacrificial death, and sad and all that kind of stuff. But we've seen that, that's happened before, not just in Star Wars. It could have easily just been a tropey moment. Could have easily, you could see it coming. And by the way, I do think you see it coming. That's part of the pain, right? Even his line as the show's going along, there's a line he has earlier where he's like, this is going to be a problem. And there's even earlier where he says, I don't like this, we should leave, right? Like all that stuff's building up to it, but just the execution of it, watching it again this morning, the break and the V-wing extension, perfectly edited. It's a great sequence, despite the sad ending.
Yeah, no, it is a really top tier action sequence. The shooting back and forth is really visceral. You can feel the impact. There's a bunch of great individual action shots. That one stormtrooper who just kind of falls into the clouds, that really reminds you of how far Tech has to fall. Is visceral and great. The V-Wings, we've talked about the V-Wings, really, I think it started in Revenge of the Sith, but really in this era being the proto TIE fighters that have that same horror to them. Tarkin's callous, like, yeah, I don't care if some of the troopers fall. I know what I'm doing. Shoot them down. No mercy. Let's go. It was sometimes when a sequence is set up where you are told by the story, you are told by the narrative, the hero has to make this bad choice because there's no other choice. You don't believe it because the hero is such a, so great. You're like, well, I feel like I've seen them get out of this situation before. What was so great about this action sequence, it was like, they're not getting out of this. It made me feel like this was worse than any other situation I've ever seen them in.
Yeah, no, there's a moment I think Tech is when he jumps onto the train cars there and he's climbing up and you think, okay, and then it like kind of falls again and he falls back down. That was my moment. That works. And there's a moment with, you talk about made me think of it, the stormtroopers are shooting back and forth with the other car. There's a moment Hunter's there giving cover fire and it's around the time where he says, like Wrecker, get him up here. Like, what are you doing? It's almost like he's going, I've seen this episode before. Let's do it. We save him and let's move on. And there's a sigh. Talk about the acting, the animation. It's the voices, but also how it's animated. There's like a sigh. He clunks against the wall. He's exhausted from shooting those stormtroopers and the tension of them. There was this little beat that I loved that added to it too. Kind of love what you're talking about.
Yeah. There's fun pew pew pew, and there's real scary pew pew pew. And this was extremely effective.
Yeah, he takes out shoots down a V-wing with a blaster. That's another great moment too. I love that.
Hey, yeah, I think I might have actually accidentally put that in the wrong. I might have put that under comedy. I meant to include that the Hunter's bullseye that knocks one V-wing into the other, right? And you're like, yeah, that's the Bad Batch. But then there's still another, and then a whole other fleet comes in, right? They're outgunned. The Empire's got them,
Yeah, I love it. I've also side meta note. I've done that on our notes before where I put a real violent action moment in comedy. And the next day I'm like, why did I think that was funny? Oh, I put it in the wrong section. Also I love Omega. I said earlier, I call it the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark standoff moment. It's not, I don't think, super intentional, but it had that vision where Omega's got the bow, and it's like when he's got the RPG, the rocket launcher pointed at the Grail. As soon as you get the Ark of the Covenant. It had that vibes. And this show's had a lot of those Indiana Jones adventure serial vibes all the way through it. I think it's one of the things I love about Bad Batch. So I'm not saying it was a direct, hey, what if Omega did this like Indy and, Hemlock didn't eat a fly accidentally like Belloc, but it just had that energy, a moment that you can't get out of, right? So even that action, I'll blow it to heaven. I'll blow that Ark of the Covenant to heaven. That you can't, right? You can't.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. And she's talking tough, but there's not, a great way out. Yeah. So let's see if we can find some moments of comedy and whimsy. There are definitely some. Where did you go?
I went to, I like a lot of stuff early. Oh, there's we'll talk about whimsy, cute moment, just a sweet moment of, Omega and Fee Jenna will have their final conversation, but she's kind of like, Fee's like, where are you going? And Omega gets that real, like, adorable, like, it's a covert mission.
Right.
Yeah, I love that there. So that there, a lot of stuff I want to make sure you have the time to talk about Tech, but Tech and Fee's last scene was heartbreaking, but also real funny.
Heartbreaking, but every line was funny. Even going back to that text, I think one of his very first lines in the episode of "There was even less on Dr. Hemlock, and I was very thorough." Like when he has to really tell you how thorough he is so great. Out of all the great lines between Fee and Tech, where Fee's really trying to get him to, say a tender goodbye. Did you require a briefing? It's just been his great evolution where he's like, I still think about things and process them this way, but I realize there are limitations, and you're trying to get me to address something else. So I'm going to acknowledge it, but I'm going to use the words in the systems I know. Like it's, when she tells him the lights coming on Pabu are beautiful. And I believe he's like, that's one way to quantify it, right? Like he's acknowledging, but he's still acknowledging through his perspective, and that, the total great straightforward joke of, oh, did you need to chat through that? Did you need to work out something out of, did you require a briefing? Beautiful. Yeah.
There's the exchange is, so you were just going to leave without saying goodbye. A real sweet, flirty line even, right? And his, that is correct. I was dying laughing because not only is it a funny moment, like I'm not necessarily like this anymore, and I'm definitely not comparing myself to Tech, who I think is sweeter than me in those moments. But like, I used to not really say like hello or goodbye to people, and people would be like, why? And I'd be like, well, I know you. I walk into a room. I don't need to say hi to you. Why? Why would anybody say, like, I know you? Now I make sure I say hi. But so I really love that little moment.
Yeah, absolutely great. I'm going to bet that you have this one on your list as well. It's a tech line, but it's a record joke. Tech, it's just funny, Tech saying we must be precise because when wouldn't he? But we must be precise, and everyone turning to Wrecker. I laughed out loud. How'd you feel about that one?
I mean, I've lived that one too. So yeah, I get it. I absolutely love that one. And it's it's the humor in the show is so sharp, and that's a great example of it.
Yeah, absolutely great. What else do you have on your list?
Oh, well, 2 moments left here for me to discuss. I'm going to stand up for my guy Wrecker. I don't love to see mouse droids destroyed, but his RIP mouse droid oops moment was, all right. He wasn't precise, and that's a good thing.
That it was hilarious, just the full stomp and then they kicking it off his foot. Much needed comedy. It was great.
The foot thing was, because it's so good you mentioned the foot thing. So when he stomps it, in that brief moment, I thought, oh man, I'd probably have trouble getting that off my foot. Oh, there we go. He's shaking it.
It was priceless funny. So I got one more. I'm curious if you have the same attempt to find comedy. What's your last one?
It's a 2-line exchange. The lines are Echo, gotta be Echo. I just really like it.
Yeah, no, that's nice. Yeah, and that was a much needed hooray. And yeah, Wrecker just ripping open the cuffs is great. This is a pretty dark entry on comedy, but it did kind of make me laugh in an ironic way when Wrecker is there at the bar just distraught, and right before she reveals that she's horribly betrayed them, Sid says, "Here, this one's on the house." And there's kind of this energy like this is this hugely magnanimous thing that she's doing, is giving him one free drink after his brother died and before he's arrested. A little too little, a little too little, a little too late there, Sid, you jerk.
Yeah, no, when I love and what I so love about that is that obviously suggests that she's just been charging them the entire time. It's like when you go to a club as a comic and you get one free drink as a comic. Great. But our job is to sell drinks. We're making sure that your audience gets 3 drinks and you can't even give us free drinks for the night. It's some clubs do, by the way, but it's always that energy of, here you go. Here's one.
Somebody invited me to do a convention once and wanted me to frankly talk to some people who are very successful about doing the convention. And I was like, oh, cool. Let's, hear the kind of different rates and the different ways that people do this. And the person was like, here's the deal. We don't pay you anything. We don't pay for your flight. We don't pay for your hotel, but we allow you to sell your own merch and we don't take any cut. Like, thank you for the generosity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm down a couple thousand and I don't have enough merch to even make half that back. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Here, this one's on the house. Yeah. It was the way the person said it. It was like, whoa. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to, a bigger section this episode, which is the canon, lore, connections to other stories, some of the big stuff about what might happen next, honestly, going on here. Obviously, we're going to talk about Tarkin and everybody at the briefing room, but I want to start with the big surprise at the end of Emery Kerr. I had definitely, we had talked about the fact that she's played by Keisha Castle Hughes. It's got a Star Wars connection there, played some other roles and a Game of Thrones, I know. But I had been like, oh, you know what? How every once in a while, even though the animation actors are fabulous, you could tell like, oh, this main actor didn't have a role this week. So they're voicing the side character. At first I was like, oh, is that Michelle Ong, which is, weird. Anyway, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was surprised that it was Keisha Castle Hughes. I had that thought and I didn't pursue that thought any farther to this surprise and great conclusion. Did you see the surprise clone sister coming at all from the similarity in voice?
Yeah, and it's been well. Let me step back. No, in no way should anyone give me credit for thinking about it. Okay, let's start there. Because I'm like, I was joke, but like I always got a lot of pals offline. Hey, what do you think's going to happen in the show? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not that smart. I just wait for the next episode, and I'll tell you what happened in the episode. Because I also like to be surprised. But no, and I think even in our Discord, our Force Center Discord, there's a lot of wonderful discussions there, and that had come up a few times of Castle Hughes and just where she's from, how she sounds, and so I think again it made a lot of sense. But I definitely love the reveal, and it was done in such a ominous. There's no sweetness to it, but at the same time, I was like, oh look, you got a sister. It's like, hey, your family goes through. And there's just been some questions about her before, even with Crosshair had stunned her instead of shot her.
Yeah.
What does he know? What does he feel? All that kind of stuff. So I think it was leading to something, and I absolutely loved it. And it's the old Clark can't take the glasses off thing. I mean, come on, it worked on me.
Yeah, you won't recognize your own adult face. Fair enough.
Yeah,
wear these glasses. Now we're just going to go into some fun speculation responsibly. How many sisters do you think there are? Do you think this is the beginning of something new, or do you think there's only her, only a few? I mean, it does seem like she is Omega with the age advancement that was done to the other clones. But do you think it's just her, or do you think there's a whole group of sisters to be met?
it opens up the possibility, and I think that would be great. I think I would prefer it's just her, that there's something special about Omega, and that there'd be equally something special about Emery. That's why I go with it. But I think it could be intriguing the other way around too.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely happy to see where the story goes, and I have great trust in these storytellers. It's a fun surprise reveal. It is this fun of, we've been following the clones forever, and we've been introduced to, Omega. We've been introduced to the trans clone sister in the publishing side. But honestly, the idea that it's not just brothers, there are sisters out there too, is exciting to me. It's inclusive. It's what other stories could be told. What is, obviously we're going to probably get Emery's story, but there's 7 of them, right? Like,
right.
Where are they in the galaxy? What are they doing? What were they made for? What have their journeys been? Have they been through some of the same things that, the brother clones have as warriors? Were they made for a purpose? Were they given individuality? Being able to tell some of the similar kinds of stories that we've told with the brothers would be great to be able to explore from a different perspective.
I absolutely think that'd be a solid idea. Great way to look at it too. And I definitely would follow that thought.
Yeah.
And to see it through Omega's eyes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think her, again, this is fun speculation. Do you have an instinct on her allegiances? Do you feel like she is totally down with everything that Hemlock is doing? Does Hemlock know, or did she infiltrate?
I don't necessarily think Hemlock knows, nor cares nor understands. Right. So let's say he does know. Neat might be his reaction. Great. Add it to the file on Google Docs. I don't care.
Yeah. More property.
I think there's a path to redemption for her, Emery. I think that could make some sense, but it's not quite as clear as, say, even Dr. Penn Pershing in Mandalorian, who, even going back, you're like, yeah, I could see he was trying to be nicer to Grogu than others. I haven't seen all of that yet. But there also could be something about, hey, if we're trying to form our personalities and this is the one you formed, who are you, who you want to be? And I guess you have that right to, you could go in that direction too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really interesting to have her kind of partnered with Crosshair in a way. And like, she's got that kind of cold line about, I warned Crosshair to just comply, So there is that rigidity, and she's down with the program. But then there's also that hint of caring. Yeah. And, you combine that with Omega has been through hell, and she's happy to just even see Crosshair, who hasn't always been great to her, right? But he's a brother. He's known. He's part of the squad, right? Yeah, so then for her to be presented not only with somebody who will maybe change her understanding of herself, but maybe somebody else who should be a part of how she defines her squad, sets really interesting challenges up for Omega. Yeah,
very interesting indeed.
Yeah, can't wait to learn more. Can't wait for that. I hope by the time we're done recording, they'll have tweeted out the air date of season 3 of Bad Batch. But we'll see. Canon-wise and lore-wise, staying in the general clone zone.
The clone zone.
What is the Emperor up to is something we've talked about, and I feel like we got a little bit more breadcrumbs in these episodes. Going to read some dialogue here. Tarkin says the galaxy is at a critical juncture where allegiances were once divided. A comprehensive strategy for galactic unification to deter dissent and rampant self-interest. Toward that end, Dr. Hemlock, what do you have to report on your advanced science division? Hemlock responds, paraphrasing, "We will ensure an enlightened society through the Kaminoans' advanced technology and molecular alteration." There's a little bit more sense of what we know, that the Emperor wants many things. The Emperor wants to see what are the possibilities with the Zilla Beast. We know way down the line, the Emperor makes Snoke. The Emperor wants extra bodies to throw his rotten soul into. So we know a couple of places that the Emperor is going eventually. Nala Se seems to be aware of a specific thing that she is being pressured to accomplish right now. And she says to Hemlock, what the Emperor seeks is not possible. So taking some of those breadcrumbs, do you have different thoughts about what it is that the Emperor wants Nala Se to do right now?
There's if this is about choices and identities, Hemlock's saying they have no choice, they're clones, right? That's the clones thing. How could you, and just listening to Tarkin, right? And what even him talk about his time with the clones. So even if he feels, I served with the clones and they became, even especially when the Jedi got to them, oh my God, they started to form their own personalities. How annoying. He thinks that about clones. He's not stopping that with people. Sorry, it sounded like I just disparaged the clones, but you know what I mean? With regular people. Sorry, clones. You know what I mean? Like, he's not stopping there. That's not stopping the Empire. It's not stopping with the Emperor. The Emperor doesn't love individuality, whether you were a clone made on Camino or you're in a system he took over. So if you're going to molecularly change somebody and you had some success with that chip implant, is there an updated version of that is how I would go with that. Does it also lead to other things and Snoke's in a bottle and all this stuff? Sure. But this is why I do rebuff against some of those ideas and thoughts and predictions, as fun as they are. And I think some of them might be connected. I don't think this is directly building to that. This isn't a path to Exegol. It's a on-ramp to it maybe. But I think right now, why would he do it now? Why would he need that now? And all that talk of choices, they're property of the Empire, does not stop on the clones or with the clones for me.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I think between Bad Batch and Mandalorian, I think eventually we are going to get a picture of when did this tech split off and go to Exegol and who got to handle that assignment and how did Snoke come about? And it could be, I still think Grogu's M count could be in effort of Proto Snoke. We could get there. But I feel like with what's being said in these episodes of Bad Batch is we're at the beginning of the Empire, and the Emperor's perspective is, I am not going to be resisted. I am going to control everything to an unnatural level. In that meeting, the summit feels like, hey, we've got all these options on the table of how to make sure no one can ever resist the order. We got wonderful Project Stardust, right? We can point a giant gun at the galaxy and let people know we will blow up your entire planet. You know, hey, people of Alderaan, you take care of Bail Organa, because otherwise we're going to blow up your entire planet. We can control people through fear. Yeah. And this almost feels like we're playing with lots of ideas. That inhibitor chip is where I went to when Hemlock is saying we will ensure an enlightened society. And Tarkin's talking about how are we going to deter dissent and rampant self-interest. The clones had concerning individuality. All these quotes you're talking about, that almost feels like we're really close to turning the inhibitor chip technology into a spray that we can just over entire societies. Just be this. Nobody will really know anything's different, but they'll just be this compliance, and I'm kind of joking about a spray, but it is like, hey, instead of threatening everybody, could we just pull Bail aside and put a thing in his brain, take care of him? Mothma's kind of annoying. We'll put a thing in her brain too. Yeah. No, I think that is what the summit was, a summit of oppression, and we didn't hear everyone else's plans. Right? We got Hemlock. We got a great little moment from Krennic. We'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, I think that's what it was, because we'd even asked, with the previous episode, like, why? What's the summit? What's the summit? And I think that's the answer. And what are they asking Nala Se to do? Because she keeps talking about it as like, I know what the Emperor wants, and I'm not doing it. You know? Yeah. And that does, I don't know. I just don't get the vibe that the Emperor is quite like, it seems like the Emperor would be pretty happy with Hemlock, but I don't feel like he's pulling him aside and going, so, I think I can project my soul.
Yes.
Can you make me a few me's? Like, I just don't feel like that's where we're at yet.
On the off chance that all of this goes away, I'd like you to create a husk for me to move into. At some point, he thinks that and does that. I get that. But that's part of the Palpatine's fun. He doesn't want to get there. So he's thinking, he might be thinking endgame, but he's also thinking, like you said, how can I save it?
I think he's maybe, sharing every file that Hemlock gives him and forwarding that to weird Exegol scientists. But I just don't get the feeling like Hemlock's the one who's working on that.
Yeah, you and I had this conversation about Gideon, but it's about Moff Gideon and Mando, to me, still being the big bad. And yes, I know Thrawn's out there on people's dream list, but it's again why Mando to me isn't exactly directly connecting to what comes later, because it just works for what. So even if Gideon has this, he's got some going on with clones and Persian and all that stuff, we still kind of feel that the way of the Empire is Palpatine goes, great, yoink. That's for me, not you. And I think even that Hemlock's not trying to work around the Palpatine or do things just for himself, but I think there's the same kind of energy. Oh, great. And by the way, I'd also love to create some vats of Snoke over here. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe Snoke is an offshoot. We had mystery vats with the upsetting shapes in them, and biggest upsetting shapes in them. So that it is all on the table. It is just I think similar thing. I think they're just a few more steps along the path here and in Mando. Getting on to that Imperial meeting. Well, for one thing, it takes place on Iriadu. I wrote it out phonetically. Iriadu, Tarkin's home planet. We hear about in the novel Tarkin. It got some great stuff in the High Republic where the Nile cross the Iriadu, and they show they warn them they're going to show no mercy, and then they show no mercy. No mercy. Tarkin is makes his choices like we all do, but also a product of his merciless culture, and that's the planet we're having this little meeting on. Yeah. So at the meeting, of course, Tarkin, Krennic, Hurst Ramadi, who is a not even named background Imperial in A New Hope, later named, and then in Rogue One he features in comic books, a recast in Rogue One. Then the other person there is Barton Coburn, who was a Republic official who appeared in the Clone Wars, in the Citadel arc, the Zygerian Slavers arc, and even in Ahsoka's trial arc. I don't have super strong memories of him, but I really like that they used somebody who has worked with the clones. And if you want to go back and look at it, you can. So I want to be sure to talk about all of them. But did anything jump out at you about this meeting, about who was there? How'd you feel about it all?
It was odd to say fun, right? And I love my Imperial officers in a weird way, but it was a roll call of terror. I didn't, the Coburn one, that makes sense, but I'm with you. I don't have a strong memory. I was focused on Ramadi, who, so I missed Krennic the first beat, which is crazy to think, but then I got super excited. But he's a fascinating character, and you're so right. I was reading a little bit of the story. The name appears in the New Hope novelization, but a line that he says attached to Mahdi, and he's not necessary, so he doesn't necessarily exist in canon beyond that. Then he's kind of brought up. Jason Fry kind of brings it back and names away. The name doesn't emerge till like 2014. It's such a fascinating tale because I've just assumed I've known that guy for 40 years, but essentially I did because he's in A New Hope, right? It's all connected. So I was excited, folks. It's also the same actor from Rogue One who's voicing him here. So I was so lost in that suddenly I was like, who's the guy in the white? Oh God, it's Krennic.
Yeah, Krennic popped for me right away. It was the night of casual Zeb and then casual Krennic. Just whoop! Oh, here we go. This is great, absolutely great. And then as it went on, I was like, oh, are we just not going to have Krennic speak? And then he has the one line, "Yes, Governor Tarkin," credited to Ben Mendelsohn. So my question for you, Ken, is did Ben Mendelsohn drive up to recording studio, say, "Yes, Governor Tarkin," and leave, or is that pulled from Rogue One?
I think there's a collection of Rogue One lines, but I'd love, maybe even with a Zoom link, maybe they emailed Ben Mendelsohn a StreamYard link and said, can you just do one line?
Can you just say, "Yes, Governor Tarkin"? Yeah. That was great. Great to see him. And I do like that he was the one who was the most panicked by what was happening.
Yes.
Yeah. My final thought on that is I do like that, that is a council of terror, as you said, but I like that Barton Coburn was like, and even Ramadi a little bit, we're like, are we underestimating or underusing the clones? And Tarkin just being like, no, they're individuals. Bleep them.
Yeah.
It made sense for the transition of the era.
That almost took the words almost in my mouth. That was exactly what I thought. Like that would be what would go on. It's the Yularen of it all. The slow slide of people like Yularen or Panaka on the cusp and slipping down that slope one beat at a time. I think that's a great example of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe want to look a little bit more at some of the things that Tarkin says when we talk about future thoughts. But want to move on from there to Saw. We talked a lot about Saw, about our feelings. I want to be clear. I love him as a character. I think the determination to take action is admirable. I just think he's not taking wise action, particularly in this episode. But how did you feel about the progression of his look? I wanted to go back and look at him early in the Clone Wars and see how far his scars have evolved and how much bigger his hair has gotten. But he looked a little different to me. How did you feel about him?
Oh, I think it's a subtle slide forward, or maybe it's a slide down. He also takes an injury here. We know he's, I don't mean this to be jokey with him, but he's relatively in one piece by the time we see him in Rebels. But we know from them to Rogue One, we got a lot of things happen to him. But his mind's going slowly for a lot of different ways and reasons. But he takes a big shot there. Which I think is a sign of what's to come.
Yeah. And how are you feeling about the eye color controversy?
I mean, what are you going to do? It's so. I know it's down on your list too, but it's not down. It's so far down my list of concerns.
It's so far down my list, and I assume an injury.
Contacts. A little vanity, but,
Yeah. Who knows? You know what? Maybe that's just that's a natural progression for Androns. As you get older, your eye changes color. Who knows? Yeah. I wanted to acknowledge that AZ3 is indeed back and put this controversial question to you, Ken. Is AZ3 part of the squad?
I think now. Yeah, now. I think guest star. He had a guest starring role, but I think you put him in the batch now. If he's there, he's on the ship. He and Gonki can hold things down while you go out.
Yeah,
vote him.
Yeah, I'm for AZ3 being part of the squad. So that was kind of big picture stuff for canon. Was there anything was there any other canon that you noticed or wanted to talk about?
No, I just going back to the chronic of it all. Even this is how Star Wars dorky we can get. So I noticed it's him, right? Oh, okay, finally see it. I missed the first beat, and then I was like, is he going to say something like you asked? But then when he update me on Project Stardust, they said a chronic. I get so excited. I don't know why. I've seen the movie. I know it's a connection. I know. But I just like say the thing. Say that he said the thing. He said the thing.
It's rewarding. It's part of the story. It is the not just give the fans what they want kind of thing, but it is the fun part of this. Of we're tracking this story that is happening over movies and books and TV shows and comic books, and we know the Krennic is pushing this forward to happen. This touches A New Hope. This touches Attack the Clones. And to hear it. Discussed that way and know the weight of it and the sacrifice that Galen has made and the reason that Galen has named it that way. And to just have this, what would otherwise be kind of a one-off line be packed with meaning. It is a reminder of the galaxy and the way the storytelling is told is rich. And I think, that's why I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, and again, I think you and I have kind of said this about like Order 66. Anytime we go to that sequence, I personally, I'm not saying you all have to agree with me. I personally don't roll my eyes and go Order 66 again. I mean, it's a big giant event of the storytelling, and we've only seen tiny corners of it. So I have no problem going. Give me a series, Disney Plus, Order 66, Tales of. I really mean that, and the Death Star turns out pretty big. And Catalyst lets you know how long it took. Rogue One lets you know how long it took. I do love it. And it is a fun reference, but purposeful.
And it's also this jockeying for position and this, like, if Operation Stardust doesn't work out, which it's still, those Geonosians are working away, but it's not going great at this period. It's going to stall. That invites the kind of thoughts that we were talking about of like, well, is maybe some sort of cloning related project a better way to make the entire galaxy docile, all sorts of great stuff there. I want to talk a little bit about the future. The future. So there could be announcement, like I said, by the time we're done recording this episode, they could already be working on a season 3. Animation takes a long lead time, so it could have always been greenlit for 3 seasons. Maybe it's going to be 2 seasons and an epic movie. We don't know, but it feels like the story is not done. What are your hopes for the continuation of the story?
I would like this to get to 4 seasons. I think that's a good number. It's a good Rebels number. I'm excited about the potential for 3rd season. I might have been a little doomsdayian to brace for myself that if this series was to go away, because I just love it. And look, we had Star Wars Resistance, a series that you and I do love, even though it's at times skewed younger, but at times skewed very dark and somber. You know, I got 2 seasons, and they say yes, no, it was supposed to be not. I don't know, but I want 4. I'll take 3. I'm excited about it. There's now so much storytelling to tell. I think thematically some ribbons were put on certain sections of it, but a lot of that was on what maybe we thought it was going to set out to do. This is about joining the rebellion. It's the formation of the early rebellion. Nah, it's not. It's not. And so because of that, because of the focus, especially as it became so clear in the last 3-4 episodes, there's definitely, it's not just plot points that can go on. It's the thematic lessons and moments and everything that we love so much can go on. So I'm excited about an announcement. I just, just to say to the industry, not to be again doomsday, but like you could have an entire 16 episodes locked and loaded, and if they don't want to release them for whatever reason, would seem stupid. They don't. And that, there's so many creators, Netflix, Hulu, all those things that have dealt with that. And Star Wars is not immune to that.
No. And from what Iger has said publicly, is wanting to really invest in the stories that make Disney Plus what it is, maybe slow them down a little bit to make sure they're the utter highest quality, right? But I could be utterly wrong, but it seems like other companies and streaming services have been learning the lessons of being hatchet people, right? If you start to just cut things, Netflix is constant, like, well, we're going to cancel anything, so there's almost no reason to invest in a season, right? Everything going on with Warner Brothers that I think has made DC really shaky, where, who knows why people didn't really turn out for Shazam 2. There are multiple reasons, but one of the reasons that people are discussing is, well, before this movie even came out, we were told it wouldn't tie in necessarily to the storytelling going forward, right? So I think that relationship with fans, that kind of more modern promise of we'll finish what we started, is a strong part of what keeps something like Star Wars healthy, that keeps something like Disney Plus healthy. And I think even if it was, Bad Batch was supposed to be 4 seasons, they're not going to let it dangle, is my hope, that there's going to be enough business awareness that, like, maybe you're going to do 3 more seasons. No. 1 season, I think that could be happening behind the scenes, but I think it will. I think it will finish.
I think so. And I think we'd be, we're going to get a 3rd and blessed for a 4th. But if they want, if they want to go that far with it, again, I still joke, but sometimes I could see this does spin off into, Rex and Echo's grand adventures. Why not? Why not? And then one of the things about the Bad Batch, I've seen this even in our own Discord this morning when I was in there on Force Center, like, you and I talked about it. I didn't love those Bad Batch episodes in season 7. I liked them. I didn't love them. And when this was announced, I went, okay. And here we are 2 seasons into it. And this is some of my favorite stuff. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this show has progressed to have such a focus, not only on the era and the kind of unique stories that you can tell there, but to make it about the clones, that was always one of the missions of the Clone Wars animated series, of like the respect for them. We mentioned the episode Ambush all the time, where Yoda tells them they're unique individuals. And this has really pushed that farther. We talked about how even though they were heroes in the Clone Wars and we loved them and rooted for them and memorized their names, there was always that little asterisk of, and they're pawns.
Yeah.
Now they're not. Now they decide. And it's so wonderful to cheer for them with no asterisks, right? We know they're not going to topple the empire tomorrow. I guess there's that asterisk. But beyond that, this is the clones getting to be who they want to be and handling their fate. And the way this second season made it about clone rights, to the point where Romney is like, there's a lot of support for clone rights.
Exactly.
The show is becoming truly about clones. So my hope for the continuation of this story is I'm so excited to see the story of maybe the one sister, maybe many sisters. I would still love for Omega to meet Boba Fett and explore a little bit more of Boba Fett's feelings on family and what it means to be a clone, all that kind of stuff would be great. I would still love to see some of the Bad Batch get their happy ending on Pabu. But the biggest thing that I'm really excited about it continuing is I would love to see the Bad Batch and the clones in general get the win of destroying some part of the cloning technology, stopping something. Like, obviously, Snoke happens, Emperor's extra bodies happens, great. Yeah. But is there something that could be a win? Like I'm joking about the spray, but something like that of like, you're going to take who we are and you're going to use us and you're going to pervert us to take away other people's agencies. And we're going to get this win. We don't know what happened. I know Tantus is in Heir to the Empire, but in modern canon, could they find Tantus and blow it to hell and make any possibility of Zillow armor go away? Make any possibility of, victimizing more clones go away, Yeah.
And ensuring that the Palpatine's enlightened youth of the galaxy doesn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a line that got me really excited in the Imperial meeting where, Tarkin, they go back and forth. Barton Coburn says, I served with the clones for many years. They're cunning warriors, loyal to the end. And Tarkin's got this line that we've been talking about of, I also served with the clones and found them at times to be very unpredictable. Under Jedi leadership, they adopted a concerning level of individuality. But then there's that further line about, hey, well, if there is some kind of clone uprising, we'll quell it. And I was like, okay, I want to see Bad Batch : clone uprising. That suggested to me, trying to have fun, responsible speculation. Is that an endgame where a bunch of clones come together and go, we are choosing to fight this. We are stopping this. And this is our victory. And Rex retires after that victory,
I love what you're saying. I'm with you on that. I'll put some chips down with you there. Tantus being a potential endgame in terms of a location. We won't be part of you, Palpatine, and your plan and Hemlock's plan to do what you want to do, to turn people into property, essentially, like you treated us. That's a great emotional win.
Yeah. Very thrilled to see where it could go. Equally thrilled if any of those thoughts play out, and also thrilled to be completely incorrect, because I think these storytellers have done a great job, and I can't wait to see what more story they have. Anything you disliked or questioned? Any other details that we haven't touched on that you wanted to bring up? Anything under those categories for you?
No, I think even some of the tougher decisions were handled just wonderfully. You said elegant. Excuse me. I'm just making up words. I think it's a great way to look at it, to take things that could easily just be, tossed aside as plot predictions. Again, not that they're not fun. We're doing it here. But I just see a lot of that out there. Will this happen? Will this person do that? And it's all wonderful stuff. But when you don't stop to analyze the why, it comes a little hollow. And I think this show, the staff, the showrunner, they analyzed the why, and just it was executed wonderfully.
Yeah, no, I really, really agree with you. I think only other thing I really wanted to shout out is always the music is great, but I really love the choice for the credits of the finale of, you can't really just have the, buoyant, exciting music, right?
Yep, no.
But the sort of a character has passed, and so the credits will be in silence has been done enough that almost feels a little tropey. So I really like the solution of it starts quiet, and then this much more thoughtful, somber, mournful music slowly fades in. It's like, nice. Really, really great choice.
Love that.
So we will end. We did it. We broke the 2-hour mark. We are going to end with a fun question, a little bit of light in the darkness. If you could have a figure or merch of any kind inspired by the season 2 finale of Bad Batch, what do you want?
Small answer. I do want an animated Krennic 3 3/4. Remember when they released those Clone War line 3 3/4 line figures? There's some because I don't know if I even ever got the Black Series Krennic. I do love that character as well for what he represents. I love Ben Mendelsohn in Star Wars. So to have him in any other kind of way, I'm praying for like an Andor thing. But yeah, it's such a good version. They got his hair. It's so good. It's so good. I want Krennic in animated form there. I think my thing, my big answer is give me like a gentle giant, maybe such as someone like that. I want a high end. Joseph's got to sell some things to buy it. $500 tech hero statue, 1/6 scale. Sits on your couch. It's so big to honor him. Even if he comes back with spider legs, even if he comes back and it's a clone version, we have that the moral question that you proposed there for possible plot points. This tech, as we knew him and as we felt and as we lost him, I want this figure on coffee tables everywhere.
Yeah, no, I really agree. We are deeply behind on tech merch. We are deeply behind on Bad Batch merch in general. I know there has been some. I'm happy for the Black series, but we're just now getting one Hunter, and they've gone through some great armor changes. Right? I love they're much more stripped back. Yeah, maybe we can chill out a little bit. Looks on Pabu. Mm-hmm. If I could have any tech action figure, I think right now I would want the vintage 3 3/4, a little bit heartbreaking, but the Tech and Fee Pabu Bliss 2-pack. And get them to hang out a little bit. That would be great. I would love that. But for now, I did open my 6-inch. The Pabu Dream Set. Yeah. The happy ending. I could come with the Malibu Beach House with the Pabu Bliss hut. That's beautiful. Yeah. For now, I'm very happy. Tech is on my desk. He's probably going to stay here for a while. Out of the box, helmet on, blaster in hand, ready to make a difference. Ready to do some analyzing and reporting. Very, very happy for that. Final thing that jumped out to me is, we're talking about really feeling the pain of but I like spending time with this character. I like spending time with the banter between them all. I would love a Bad Batch video game. It doesn't even have to be that, just imagine just running around doing basic missions. And we've got, 800 funny different lines recorded between Wrecker and Tech and, just a myriad of Hunter groans and sighs. Omega being excited by everything she sees. It would be bliss.
That'd be great. Even just one of those old classic video games of movies, right? Just even if you're just doing the first 2 seasons in a game form or something, or get to the end and do a whole show,
yeah.
I'm on the Camino level. I can't get out. Yeah.
How did they get out in the show? I forget.
I'm trying to capture Moochie right now. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
You got to play the Crosshair level where he has to go fishing and all the months it takes before the Empire picks him up. Great times indeed. Well, that is our big look at the season finale of Bad Batch. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram as well. Facebook, Force Center Podcast. Hive Social, if you're over there at Force Center. You can find the podcast in a lot of spots. Acast is our home, but Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and a whole lot more. Don't forget, we are on YouTube. Some of you might be listening to these rebroadcasted podcast episodes, but we have a lot of original content, figure fights, reels, and more things on the way, including a wonderful essay that Joseph put out a while ago when we didn't know this was happening, but it's a tribute to Tech. Check it out on our YouTube channel. You can also support us directly at patreon.com/4center. Get merch at TeePublic at tpublic.com/user/4center. Follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com. Joseph, where can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media, Instagram, Mastodon. I'm still on Twitter, trying to be somewhat productive there. My handle everywhere is at Joseph Scrimshaw, so check that out. And you can also go to my YouTube channel and check out all of my comedy bits and short films that are up there. Like Ken said, we have, for right now, we wanted to wait to tweet out that Tech essay I did, but we did put it as the featured video on our page if you're a new subscriber or a returning subscriber. So if you haven't checked that out and wanted to, that is right there on the front of the Force Center YouTube page. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Tech, it is time to say the Bad Batch report has concluded.